Ahead of NFL Week 4 and the Bills matchup with the New Orleans Saints, they made some roster moves shuffling around their practice squad. Brandon Beane never sleeps. We'll break down those moves in just a moment. And a new free agent DB is on the market. I think he'd be a really, really good fit with the Bills. We'll discuss signing CJ Gardner-Johnson on the back half of today's show. But before we get into all that, if you want the Bills to beat the Saints and start this season 4-0, go down below, show me, don't jinx it, like today's video. Smash the thumbs up icon. I'm going to try to get more likes than we've ever gotten on a video this month. 730. Can you guys beat it? Go down below, hit the like button. Alrighty, Dan Feeney, Bills practice squad O-lineman, has been poached by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, signing to their 53-man roster. And I mean, from the Bucs' perspective, they needed to go out there and get some guys who have been out there on the practice field so far this year because they are down 3 starters on their offensive line. If you guys watch the Jets and Buccaneers game from this past week, I mean, it was an atrocity back there. And it wasn't even like Baker Mayfield was constantly, getting sacked and stuff like that. It was the penalties that were so atrocious for that Tampa Bay squad and that offensive line that was kind of, thrown together there for week 3. So the Bucs getting some insurance here and stealing away a guy who the Bills liked in Dan Feeney but couldn't find a spot on the active roster for. To make up for this loss, they went out and signed another offensive lineman, a familiar face for Bills fans, a 7th-round pick back in 2023 by Buffalo. Nick Broeker gets back to the 7-1-6 here after playing with the Texans in 2023 and 2024. Didn't end up making the Bills roster in his rookie season. Ended up playing in Houston. Played 4 years at Ole Miss and never missed a start in 48 games. So if the Bills are looking for some potential injury insurance here, then we got a guy who's fairly durable in Nick Broeker. And a nice familiar face getting back in the building here. Glad to see him back on the practice squad here. The Bills also waived his cornerback Jalen Kimber as they made another practice squad signing, so they had to obviously let somebody else go. And I'm not going to lie, he was a 20-25 UDFA, signed to the Titans practice squad, then the Bills, and then he was released. There isn't a ton that I have on Kimber. He was brought over, I believe, during the preseason, and we never really saw all that much from him. But best wishes to him as he continues his NFL journey. Now, the Bills did make one more signing here, and I think this one could be pretty consequential, actually, down the line. I think there's a chance that we see new Bill Otis Reese IV end up playing some football in blue and red this season. 2023 UDFA with the Titans. He ended up making their 53-man roster back then. He started 3 games as a rookie, had 13 games played with 17 tackles in 2024 last season. Also recorded his first interception of his career back on December 8th of 2024 against the Jaguars. So a guy who has legitimate experience here, a guy who originally, I believe, played safety in college and then has since made the transition to linebacker here, so has good coverage ability and really, really good special teams value as well. And to me, with the Bills having a couple of injuries in their linebacker room right now, and not only Matt Milano, but also Keontae Jenkins, who plays a pretty critical role on special teams when he's brought up by the Bills. This, to me, feels a little bit like Keontae Jenkins' insurance. He was a really good, solid plus special teams player with the Titans during his tenure. He was actually 4th on the team with 5 special teams tackles back in the 2023 season. So a guy who can absolutely play in those situations. And if the Bills need a guy on Sunday when or if Keontae Jenkins cannot go, I feel confident that Otis Reese can go out there and make a play or two on special teams. Now, before we get into the CJ Gardner-Johnson stuff and anything else on today's show, I do want to mention it because we're talking about the Bills practice squad. Guys like Gabe Davis, and Jordan Phillips, who we know the Bills brought in before the season. Davis, we know, is still nursing back from that knee injury, and we'll see if he ends up, getting back in the mix here as he recovers. If the Bills decide to potentially bring him up for a 4th or 5th receiver here, as we haven't seen Curtis Samuel get activated just yet or anything like that. So keep my nose to the grindstone on Gabe Davis. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, though, as we are in a Week 4 sub battle, and we are razor thin with the margins right now. Saints now has us just by 4 subscribers, and we got to get to a lead before this game kicks off. Got to beat the Saints off the field before we beat them on the field. So subscribe to the Bills Breakdown for free Bills content every day, and so we can kick Trace Gerard's butt over at Saints Now. Next, we're going to talk about signing CJ Gardner-Johnson as he was released by the Houston Texans. I think he's a great scheme fit, but can the Bills make it happen, and should they make it happen? We'll talk about that around the corner. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. In this football season, it can get you up to 2,000 times your money with just one lineup watching your Buffalo Bills. It's daily fantasy made easy. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less, whether it's football, baseball, basketball is around the corner. You can mix and match all these different sports in the same lineup. And like I said, just pick more or less on the projected stats. PrizePicks always wants to make it easier for you guys to win real money in real time. They're offering up $50 in lineups instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. But Here's a caveat. You got to use our promo code CLNS like you see in the bottom right of your screen. If you want to see my lineup for Week 4's action, I got Dalton Kincaid more than 37.5 receiving yards. Feed the hot hand. Speaking of hot hands, James Cook, get in the end zone for your 8th consecutive Bills game. That'd be a franchise record. More than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. And then Spencer Rattler is going to be playing from behind the whole game. I got more than 207.5 passing yards. You can tell my picks or fade them. Just do it at PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code CLNS for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. The Texans released safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And it was a surprise, man. He was traded for, and draft capital was given up for him coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles in the offseason. And then just 3 games into the 2025 campaign, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is once again a free agent. Interesting. Should the Bills go out there and sign him? My immediate thought on this situation is this guy got cut for a reason, and it could be a multitude of reasons. There have been talks about him not being the best in coverage so far this season, but there are also talks about him not being the best teammate behind the scenes. Through Week 3, C.J. Gardner-Johnson does have a 59.8 PFF coverage grade. Like, it's not great. It's not the worst in the NFL, but it's certainly not great. Missed some assignments, especially in this Jaguars game. I think he got caught, and the Jags ended up scoring a touchdown off of some blown coverage on C.J. Gardner-Johnson. If you wanted a little bit more of a painted picture on where he is this season, PFF's not the Bible, but they got a pretty good picture painted. Solid run defender, but I think he was complaining to the Texans coaching staff that he actually wasn't getting enough blitz looks. So it's interesting there because he was playing pretty solid in that department as far as being a pass rusher goes, not necessarily anything crazy there, 59.8. And then coverage grade of 58.9. Like not too inspiring of a season so far from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but these numbers aren't numbers that would get you cut 3 weeks into the season, in my opinion. DJ Bien-Aime said this about the release. Compounding the coverage busts, he says that Gardner-Johnson has refused to take responsibility for his mistakes, rubbing his teammates the wrong way, according to sources, with one member of the team saying Gardner-Johnson finger-pointed instead of owning up to his mistake. So the consensus around the league, he's bounced around. I mean, he's been traded, cut a bunch of 5, 6 different spots, it seems like, every year at this point. The consensus is that he's a locker room cancer. And that's not the best guy to bring into an environment when you're trying to go out there and win a Super Bowl based on things like continuity and culture. So it wouldn't be the best, maybe, or I wouldn't say it wouldn't be the best idea, but it would absolutely be a risk bringing C.J. Gardner-Johnson in and, muddying up whatever the Bills have going on in the locker room. But the Bills are also a team whose culture is kind of based on the power of friendship and, community and, kind of righting the wrongs of some guys who have some previous past like this. Remember Jordan Phillips? He was looked at as a locker room cancer before the Bills brought him in. They love him now. They love him so much they brought him back in the practice squad before this season as some reinforcements. So could C.J. Gardner-Johnson be a little bit of a redemption story with the Buffalo Bills? Because I still think he's absolutely got elite ball left in the tank. I mean, it's 6 picks in 2024. You don't just have 6 picks and be a bad football player. 12 PBUs last season as well. You go back to 2022, 8 PBUs, 6 more picks, 3 picks in 2021. A little bit of a down year for Detroit, but obviously he didn't play all that much. I actually had an interception in the 3 games that he did play, suffered a season-ending injury early on in the year. So, I think this guy's absolutely can still play ball. Is he going to put up, safety 1 numbers? No, because he just got cut by his team. Even if he was, pointing fingers in the locker room, if he was playing at a high level, they would still keep him around. So he's definitely not the same player that he was, say 3 years ago, but I think he still is absolutely serviceable and belongs in the Bills safety room given the skill level that they have at that position group right now. Should the Bills sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson? Why for yes and for no? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Is this a move that you would make if you were Brandon Beane? I want to know. The bigger issue is not that C.J. Gardner-Johnson might not be a great locker room guy or he's kind of fallen off a cliff physically or production-wise. I don't think that is the biggest issue with Brandon Beane not or going to sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson. No, the bigger issue is the Bills probably can't. They have negative $1.5 million in available cap space at this point, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I'm not saying he's going to make substantial money on the next deal. It'll probably be whatever the minimum is for this season because he's going to get some guaranteed money from the Texans on the after being released. But the Bills don't really have any money, so they have to maneuver around. They have to make some, probably make a trade potentially, or they'd have to do a restructure or an extension to clear up some money. it's not exactly easy in the middle of the NFL season when you're negative cap space to, create enough to go sign a pretty decent defensive back at that. So this is my overall take with the CJ Gardner-Johnson stuff. If Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott think it's a good idea, if they think that CJ Gardner-Johnson makes them a better football team, then I trust them to go out there and make the move. It will take some maneuvering for Brandon Beane, but if there was maneuvering to be done, then he would really, really believe in the contributions that Gardner-Johnson can make to this team. As far as being a scheme fit, I think he fits like a glove. I think he's probably better of a player than Cole Bishop. We'll see if that ends up being the case, if he ends up getting signed to the Bills or wherever he goes this season. We'll have to compare the two, but he absolutely deserves snaps in this Bills safety room. Maybe we would not see as much Taylor Rapp-friendly fire as well. That will do it for today's edition of the Bills Breakdown. Make sure you are give me a follow over on Twitter at Tyler J. Smith, 2 H's because the name's common, but I am not. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well. Trying to beat the Saints in our Week 4 sub battle, so youtube.com/Bills News to subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, let's go Buffalo.